welcome back to my channel, Read and Escape with Nina. So, hi, I am back. And guess what? I finished this book that I've been talking about for a while and that I've been enjoying so much, and that is Suffer the Children by Craig DeLuey. Oh my goodness, I was taking my time with this one um, because I was enjoying it and I just really wanted to absorb it. I also made quite a few annotations in this one because, like I said, I wanted to take my time. Look, if y'all hear something in here, Piper is under my desk right now, so you might see her and hear her. But yeah, so I finally finished this. This is my first book by this author. Um, I'm actually looking at other books by him. I'm thinking about buying. That's how good this book really was. I was engaged the whole time, never got bored. I was even, like I said, taking my time and tabbing it and highlighting and making little notes in it. I don't mind making notes in my books. It doesn't bother me. And this is like an apocalyptic story. So just to give you like a brief synopsis, this is about um one day, all the children in the world just drop dead. They start experiencing symptoms before they die, and all of the symptoms are different. Some people smelled something burning. Some of the kids had headaches, but they dropped dead, and obviously, all the parents were just traumatized by this, stricken with grief. And during this period, we're following many couples. We're following quite a few different couples in this book, and it doesn't make it hard to follow at all. So they're the ones obviously going through the grief and struggling with this, and all of a sudden, 3 days later, their kids are back, but there's something different about them. They are stoic in their expression, kind of statue-like. They look like themselves, but their personality is a tad bit different. um they sort of just sit and stare, and they need something to get themselves back to the way they were before. The parents don't quite understand initially, but after hearing the kids say it, they realize that they're craving or need blood to revitalize themselves. So once they get blood, they are back to themselves the way they were before they died. But it doesn't last long. Like a pint of blood, if they get like a pint, it only gives them back an hour of their life. And so they can go and they can, like one of the little boys, I think Nate, he could go to the park with his dad, play catch with them, but then he knows that he's gonna drop dead, within the hour, or they may get a few hours and then they just drop dead. And because there's a smell that's associated with that, what the parents normally do is they'll kind of like wrap them in plastic, put them in the garage while they're going through this until they can figure out how to get some blood to bring them back. So it's like a vicious cycle. And when I was reading this, I was like, God, the parents are kind of having to deal with the children constantly dying over and over. Like when you think about it, you give them the blood, they come back, but they're only back for a little while, and then they die again. It's like constant grieving, constant hurting. Um, and in the midst of all of this, people start turning on each other, and because you have your child that you're trying to save and get blood for, and then they have their child that they're trying to get blood for, and so hospitals are becoming like overrun, and just they're running out of blood, and people are turning on each other just to get some blood, like they're trying to kill each other, and it's just turning into complete chaos. On top of that, the children, as time go on, this is called the Herod syndrome, and as time goes on, and what I do like about this book excuse me, is they do talk about the medical side of this syndrome and break it down, like how it's affecting the body, and things that's happen in terms of how they're changing physically, how they're changing mentally. And I really like the scientific part of that, if I'm being honest. I enjoyed reading that clinical part. um it really made the story uh, it was vital to the story and how you understand why is this happening to the children and didn't happen to the adults. I think it was a great piece that the author put in here, and it wasn't like you weren't inundated with it in the sense that you just didn't understand the jargon. Very easy to understand, but I love that that was incorporated in it. And as this syndrome, I guess, as they're in this state for quite some time, they start to diminish as a person, and their personality does too. So not only do you have adults fighting with each other to try to get blood and trying to hurt each other, you have these children that's really changing, whether they get blood or not. They are starting to really change and starting to turn and become violent too. So it's just complete chaos, guys. I just so enjoyed this. There were some creepy parts to this story, very creepy parts, and some of them I'm going to share with you. This may be a long video, I'm sorry, but I just get excited when I find a book like this and I just enjoy talking about it. I can just go on and on and on. But there were some parts where I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm scared just reading it. And that's what you want. You want to feel these things. You want to, when I read a book, you want all five senses involved. I mean, reading, I could smell the blood, the way they were talking about the blood and smelling metal and tasting it and all this. Like you want all your five senses involved when you read a book, and then this one definitely tapped into that. So I want to go over all the little things and notes that I annotated and maybe just dig deep into some of those too. There may be some spoilers in here. Um, just to give you a heads up, but I just enjoyed it so much. I cannot do this type of review and not share some of my little annotations in here. So I'm going to get started on that next. Okay, so some of it may seem foreign because you haven't read the book. Some of you may have not have read the book yet. So when I just read it, it may seem a little foreign, but I'm going to try to give some type of context with it from what I can remember. I did finish this. I think I finished it Friday night. And I usually like to give myself like a day or two before I start filming and talking about the book, just kind of let it absorb and let me think about it for a little while. That's been quite helpful. Honestly. But yeah, and look, I'm in my early 40s, okay? So what comes with that is needing readers, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Well, that's Piper. I'm not ashamed to say it. Sometimes with this print, I just cannot see it. So I have these lovely 1.00 readers that get me through my reading at night. So yes, I'm definitely gonna put these on so I can read the little things that I annotated for you guys. All right, one second. Whew. Yes, it makes a big difference. Now I can't see anything with the camera what's going on up there, but that doesn't matter. I just need to be able to see this real quick. So the first thing, well, let me just say it first. When I read this, so one of my favorite families or couples that I like is Doug and Joan, or he sometimes call her Joni. They have two children, Nate and Megan. Um, I like Doug because I like his personality. And sometimes, even if this is a horror and it's a very serious book, there are funny parts to life. You know, life is serious, but there's some funny parts to life. And Doug has this way of saying things so blunt and so curt. And it just makes it so funny when you're reading it. I know one of the scenes, and I didn't annotate it in here. I wish I did, but I didn't. One of the scenes, he had just lost his children, and he was like this. Um, I don't want to say garbage guy, but he was like responsible for collecting trash and disposal or whatever like that in the city. And they needed help with these bodies, like disposing of the bodies. It was too many to just have all these funeral services, have all these bodies prepared for funeral services. It was just hundreds of thousands of children. So they had to all, unfortunately, bury them in like one big long hole. And so, because this was part of like his work, they had called him to see if he would help out with that. And they were like, "Hey, Doug, we thought that maybe you can come." And like before they could get it out, he was like, "Go to hell." And I just thought it was so hilarious. I mean, he just buried his children. He was over it, and he was like, he cannot believe that the job was actually calling him. It was funny how he cut the guy off. The situation wasn't funny, but how Doug, the character, responded back to him to me was quite hilarious. Um, so in this first one that I noted, this is when Joan goes to her pastor and just goes to him for guidance and support after losing her children and after this huge Herod event. So she's going to him for some type of support and some understanding. And this is what she says after speaking with the pastor. Maybe Pastor Gary was right. Maybe God was a son of a bitch, vindictive enough to kill children, or callous enough to let them die. Joan wanted a Bible reading anyway. If there was a supreme being and an afterlife, she wanted her children to arrive right with God. They were not always good, but they were always pure. They were innocent. I just thought that was a good section to annotate because there's a religious aspect there, and there is, some ambiguity for some people about, afterlife and what happens and things like that. So you're naturally scared when you go through something like this and you lean on a pastor. And when the pastor is like, I have no words. I don't know how to help you. This, what's happening is just horrible. She's like, wow, I don't know what to do if he's feeling this way, but I need some type of Bible reading. I need some type of comfort. Um, so yeah, that's where that one comes from. I have so many, you guys. Let me see what I have next. This is after. So the way this book is written, it's like 24 hours before the Herod event or Herod syndrome event. And then once the event happens and the children dies, then it's like 72 hours before resurrection. That's how it reads. And then once they're resurrected and they come back, then it's 24 hours after resurrection, 42 hours after resurrection, or something like that. So you're kind of getting a play by play of how things are changing by the hour. I love it. So this section that I'm about to read here is obviously after the children have, let's see, this is just 8 hours after they have been resurrected. And this is Doug and talking to his wife. And he says, of course it is. They're dead. They're dead, and we're treating them like living people. And then the children's eyes flickered in unison and looked at him. Jesus, he stuttered, their eyes are following me. So this is the part where you're getting the idea of how the children are acting, and they're just sitting there and their eyes are wide and they may blink occasionally. And when Doug sees this, it's freaking him out because that's not how normal children behave. It's not how normal people behave. So he's trying to tell his wife, like, hey, something's different. This is a little creepy. I don't know how I feel about this. And what I have next highlighted here is Doug wasn't a religious man, but he believed in a God who kept score. Taking the children home and playing with them as if they were dolls struck him as an abomination. If his children were truly dead, then they should have stayed dead. It was sad as hell. It was hard. It had broken him and Joan, but it was the natural order. Those things in the house were not his kids, plain and simple. They were ghosts, a mocking imitation of children he loved more than himself. Isn't that beautifully written? A mocking imitation of the children he loved more than himself. What I like about the Doug character is he understood reality. He understood what was going on. Even if he was a grieving father, he wanted his children back. He realized that, hey, they're different. Something's different here, and maybe things should have just stayed the way they were. Um, I kind of like that about him. So this is after resurrection, and parents are noticing that their children are different, and they're taking them to this doctor. His name is David. Him and his wife Nadine run a clinic. Nadine, his wife, is a nurse. So they take him to him, and here we go. It's saying no pulse, no respiration, skin is cold. They're icy dead stares, so they're not really blinking. It's just nothing there. Um, I just think that's where, you started when you're reading this, you're just realizing, yeah, these kids are still technically dead. It said this isn't a simulation of death, it's real death. Their bodies are decomposing, there's no heartbeat, no respiration. But there is some brain activity. Some. So once because they are moving their eyes, they are speaking a tad bit. Um, and when they do get blood, they are really active. So that's why it says there is some brain activity. So, okay, let's move on to this. This is the part where the mom, Joan, is starting to realize that, okay, the children aren't eating. They're not drinking. What is going on? How come they don't want food? Maybe they're tired. They're trying to figure out what's going on. So one night when she's tucking Nate to bed and he's just stoic and statue like and acting weird, she says, "What is it, Nate? Do you need a drink of water?" Air rattles in his chest like a tiny motor trying to start. "Are you all right?" Froth bubbled at his lips. Next to her, Doug snored. "Blood," Nate wheezed. "Blood? Want it. For what?" He didn't answer. He turned into a statue again. Then she noticed his mouth was still moving, puckering like a fish on land. She brought her ear close to his face to hear blood, 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 blood. And it literally has that. Just saying it over and over. And that just freaked me out when I first read it. Imagine that. Like she put her ear to him and he's saying that. I'm like, oh my God, that is so freaking scary. That is creepy. That is absolutely creepy. So now they know, they're learning that something's different and food is not just going to sustain them. They don't want it. Um, I did note something in here that says we're getting Nate's perspective, which I thought was really nice. So 4 days after the resurrection, Nate is the little boy, Joan and Doug's son. And I put here that we're getting the child's perspective. And what I like about this is he talked about how is a struggle in himself that he doesn't like to be dead. Now, this is the early stages of this syndrome, by the way. The later stages, they don't care. So these early stages where they're like children who feel like they fell asleep for a long time and it was just dark and cold and lonely, and they woke up and they're different. They're not really understanding what's going on with their bodies. So he was kind of explaining um to his dad, like, hey, I don't want to die again, and um how much time do I have? And his dad said a pint and a half, gives each of them about an hour. So he's telling his dad that, like, I don't want to die again and all of that, when they're out at the park and they're playing. And um it made you feel sad for the child, but like I said, that's really short lived because this syndrome progresses. But Nate also said that, he liked when he talked to his dad like he was a grown up. And the way his dad explained it to him is like, hey, you have batteries just like a helicopter, and over time it wears out, and you need medicine, which is blood, to help kind of recharge. So he said to his dad, will you get more? And he said, we will. And will you wake me up again? He said, that's right. And he said, promise? And his dad nodded, you bet. He said, I don't want to go to sleep forever, Dad. I don't want to be dead. And he said, it's not going to happen. He said, I don't even dream. It's just nothing. And he said, I'm going to take care of it. And Nate said he believed him, and he started playing. And he said, where are you going? And he's going to the playground. And then after just running around for a short while, he collapsed because he ran out of that medicine. It's this is a wonderful, it's a great story. I love it. Um so as we're getting like further into it, parents are obviously getting desperate, and they're doing things at any cost to get blood for their children. And there is one particular scene in this book that I'm just going to warn you as a trigger warning, and it was just awful. It's when Doug decided to kill the family dog and cut his throat so that he could give that blood to his children, only to find out that the children didn't take well to animal blood. They choked on it, coughed it up, and they went right back to the state that they were in. And it says Major's, who is that's the name of the dog. Major's sacrifice had been for nothing. Doug had killed his longtime friend for nothing. And I just wrote here, just simply heartbreaking. I'm not going to read that whole passage to you guys with all of that detail, um, because it was horrible. But it just goes to show the lengths that these parents are going through just to try to get their children back to the way they were. Um, I just put, they sacrifice the health of others to keep their dead kids alive. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's essentially what they're doing. Um, Doug is forced to have to go and rob a hospital when people are saying don't do this. People need what little blood we still have, because think about it. You still have people in the hospital that's sick that needs blood, and it's being taken and stolen and given to children. So it's just everybody's just dying. It's just pandemonium. It's crazy. And I notated just how they're keeping. I don't know why I notated this, but I'm not going to read all this to you guys. How they keep stock of the blood and how it's labeled, and it does say blood was a wealth these days, and it definitely was a wealth in this world having blood. Just the things that people had to go through fighting each other, killing each other. Um, you have this one mom in this book. She's a single mom. Her name is Ramona. I think her son's name was Josh. And she was just calling up old friends, pretending like she wanted to get together and catch up. And they knew, because they're watching the news, they're seeing how people are acting, and they knew that she was just trying to get them over there to kill them so she could feed her son. Because her son was constantly, she had him in the basement because they're starting to get really angry and irate and vicious, as this syndrome progresses. And she kept him in the basement, and he would keep banging on the door saying, I'm hungry. And so she killed one of her boyfriends to feed him. And then it's just becoming not enough. It's never enough. So it's just crazy. But I said, um, what did I say here? They need to keep her. The need, oh, and I said for Ramona, the need to keep her dead child alive is just getting crazy. She's murdering people. She's baiting them to come to her house, acting like a caring friend just to keep her son alive. And he's not alive. Um, and this, it goes on further to talk about how Nate tried to attack his parents. It just gets crazy, guys. I highly recommend this. This is such a good book. Um, and then towards the end, you start to see, because at first Doug was on board with realizing that something was completely different. And towards the end, you start to see Joan facing reality that, they may have to make a choice. Like, do we keep doing this, or do we just let our children go? That's the main thing. Do I keep doing this, or do I let them go? Um, this is just scary good. I mean, towards the end, you start fearing the children because they start growling and seeking out adults. And if they see you in the street, they're going to chase after you, especially if you're bleeding. They're chasing after you. So not only are you trying to stay away from the adults who are trying to kill you to feed their children, you're trying to stay away from the stray children who's just out in the streets that parents just kind of let them go. They're like, Mister, come here. We gotta ask you a question or something. And they're trying to lure these adults in. It's really twisted, crazy, scary, good reading. Um, I would just highly recommend this. I really enjoyed it. It's not too scary to the point where it's like you can't sleep at night. You're gonna get nightmares. Um, but it's definitely worth a read. I think you guys should give it a try. I really loved it. I could go on and on about it, but that's all I have for tonight. I just wanted to give you guys an update. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified. And I will check you guys next time. Bye.